Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
I'm Chris Clements.
And I am freshly back, having been yesterday at your alma mater of USC.
Fight on.
And
how was it?
It was great. I think it's every year. Sometimes it's twice a year. It depends on the semester. I speak at a specific political communications class. Dr. Wissot does. And
that's fantastic.
It is always, I love doing it because I love to talk.
Well, who doesn't?
And, but I get the most enjoyment out of it because I get to interact with young people who are our future. And every time I speak there, I feel like, the future is bright.
Yeah, you've said that in the past, and that's good to know.
I mean, even though I'm pretty certain that most of the students that I talk to over time, and this would have been true yesterday, philosophically are not necessarily aligned with me. They're probably
Are there any conservatives?
Yeah, there are a few.
USC
I mean,
anymore.
Yeah. I'm sure there are.
I mean, USC when I was there it was noted for its conservatism.
Is that right?
Well, I mean, yeah, it was.
That was a long time ago.
I mean, John Wayne and Tom Selleck and Ronald Reagan. I mean, USC was noted for that. USC was the antithesis of UCLA.
Right.
And now that it has changed so dramatically.
It has changed a lot. But, it's California.
Yeah.
Right. They asked great questions. And that's the thing I always appreciate is because I'll talk a little bit.
So what do you talk about? Like what do you
talk about
every
dark
time?
Money? Yes, every time it's a little different.
Okay,
because it's kind of dependent on what's going on in the world at the time, and sometimes I'll start with a question and then go right into just ask me questions. And I lay out. I say there's only one rule in this whole thing, and that is there's nothing off limits.
Wow.
You can ask me anything.
All right. So how did you start? Like, I'd like a little bit of a play-by-play.
I did ask.
Because I am a little bit jealous that you were at my alma mater. We didn't do a Light Beer, Dark Money live from USC.
Maybe we should do, maybe we'll, you know what? Maybe I'll talk to Dr. Wissot and we should do that.
You know what's interesting? I was looking, I don't know why I was doing this. It's late at night and you're finding the end of the internet. And I went on, I was sort of reminiscing about USC, and I think it was right after I renewed my season tickets, right on, and I went on the College Letters, Arts, and Sciences website, and I went to look for some of my old professors, and guess what? A lot of them are still there.
Is that right?
And one of my old professors, Dr. Dekmajian, he's still around, and then Dr. Neomarki, who is from Hungary, that I did my big senior kind of thesis with about that political correctness is actually the new fascism. Guess what? I was right. I mean, this is 1992.
Yeah,
and turned out to be absolutely correct. Now it's DEI and whatever else you want to put in there. But he is now an emeritus and he's still around. And I'm like, I wonder how I can reach out. And there is a way to reach out to him. I need to contact.
You should do that.
Yeah.
Well, I would guess that every one of these students that I've talked to at Dr. Wissot's class is the kind of person that is going to remember Dr. Wissot. Mm-hmm. Michael Wissot, phenomenal guy, just understands this stuff very well, and giving them very practical.
That's great.
Tools to go into whatever it is they want to go into, because communication, as I pointed out, one of the things that I kind of led with in the class to answer your question was their political communication is the core of all things in society, because we are we're a political society, whether we like it or not, and how we communicate on that is key. And, so I answered questions. We talked about dark money. We talked about the influence of money in politics, whether there's outside, influence from foreign countries, foreign money. Talked about what were the pivot points in my career, highs and lows. I mean, it was just some really good discussion, some great insights from them on their own experiences. Because I asked, what is your, do you have a political inflection point, political memory a few that had some great answers, and they all, I think, and what I ended with was, if you take anything away, it's that we have more in common than we have differences. I'm way more conservative than any of you, but we can be friends.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to hate each other.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great message.
So yeah, it was they they asked questions that
there wasn't one conservative in the group, or were they way in the back hiding?
No, it was a small group, and which is good because it's a senior level class.
Yeah.
And I didn't ask them where they were politically. I mean, a couple of them kind of offered, where they were.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure there's some that are right leaning.
Yeah.
There have in the past, there have been a couple of, like one came up to me afterwards a couple semesters ago and was like, "Hey, I want to work in politics and I'm very conservative," so
help me.
Yeah.
No, it never used to be that way.
So it's something I love to do, and I'm glad I did it.
That's great. Well, that's a much better day than I had yesterday.
So tell me about your day.
Well, my day yesterday was heading south, going past the Gila
You went
River.
back to your old stomping grounds.
Yeah, I went back to Tucson. We had to renew our kids' passports, because they expired, and they've got the Western Passport Office down there.
Yep.
And
are you leaving somewhere soon? Because to go down there means
that means we're leaving somewhere soon. We got spring break coming up.
Got it.
And I won't say where we're going, but it had to
secret, undisclosed location.
Undisclosed location. But Google told me to turn on Speedway. I'm like, okay, I'll turn on Speedway. It is so depressing down there. I mean, the traffic still, of course, doesn't move.
Right.
Speedway, many years ago, back in the 1970s, was declared by Life magazine as the ugliest street in America. And I can tell you, despite all the capital development that they've poured into Speedway over the last, 50-something years, it is still the ugliest street in America, with all the potholes.
The most ill-named
you can't
street in America.
That is absolutely true. You cannot speed down Speedway because the running speed limit is either 25 or it's 30 or it's 35 or it's 40 once you get past Wilmot. And I made a post on LinkedIn about this, and it's just a really sad state of affairs, because I went back and I looked at the different transportation plans that had been proposed for years. And there was a freeway plan that was proposed back in the 1960s that was perfect. I mean, there was actually like 2 crosstown freeways, something going along up north-south as well in the middle of town. It would have been perfect. But of course, the NIMBYs and the neighborhood groups, and all the people who want to keep Tucson this little tiny hovel that nothing happens, nothing moves, nothing grows. And it just occurred to me, Tucson likes to say that we're progressive. We are a progressive community. Tucson is regressive.
Yeah.
Nothing changes, nothing happens, nothing moves. You will have blight that just sits there for years and years and years, because to redevelop anything in Tucson takes an act of God. Something, and it's never changed.
That's so frustrating.
It's never changed. And when people ask me all the time, like, what's the biggest difference between Tucson things? You say sidewalks. Absolutely. But it's the blight. It's the cleanliness. And it doesn't start. And now you've got the business group, the Tucson Metro Chamber down there, that's merging with the Economic Development Group, which has had like 5 different names, GTEC, Trio. Now it's called Sun Corridor. There might have been something in between. And they're kind of putting lipstick on a pig. They're saying, this is going to be great. This is going to consolidate our leadership, give us more resources. We're going to aggregate all these nice little buzz terms. But the reality is, Tucson, if you go back, you just do a Google search on it, has only grown like 1 to 1.5% a year for like the last 10 years.
And this is Arizona. So, this is the Southwest.
Yeah, this is Southwest.
Booming.
So the problem is there's no money.
Yeah.
Their models don't work anymore because there's no money. You can't sustain true economic development, economic growth with 1%.
No.
It's impossible. And so the giant sucking sound you hear in Tucson is everyone moving.
Yeah.
And now David Schweiker has a great app that he's sent me to a couple times, where money moves. And it's stark to see how much money, how many people have left Tucson.
The outflow of Tucson.
The outflow of Tucson. And it's sad. And I'm not anti-Tucson. I am pro-Tucson. I want Tucson to succeed.
Which is why you're so frustrated.
I'm so frustrated because the leadership there, specifically the business leadership, nobody wants to go up against the machine. And who is the machine? The Grijalva machine.
Yeah.
And everything that goes with that.
Well, and this is a perfect segue into something I wanted to talk about. Americans for Prosperity, Arizona.
God bless them.
One of our sponsors.
Yes.
They
will single-handedly get this tax cut.
Yeah.
through Congress.
I think that's a big one. But here locally in Arizona, they are strongly supportive of a bill that Senator Shawna Bolick has introduced, SB 1229, which is meant to allow people who own property to do things with their property that they'd like to do, in personal freedom.
Sure.
Right? Because liberal cities are preventing people from doing the kinds of things that they want to do on their property. This affects homes built on plots of land 5 acres or more.
Okay.
That are zoned for single family homes.
Yeah. So large plots.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not like 50,000 square feet.
No, these are large plots that are single family home zoned, and people are like, hey, I want to put more homes on my property, and the cities are saying, nope, can't do it.
That's interesting. And
may
putting
own
it
the
at a 5
property,
acre
but-
limit.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Not like the 1 acres in Paradise Valley
Right.
where somebody can put up a big art center in their backyard that blocks your view of Camelback.
I wonder if that's happened.
That is happening. It's happening right now.
I sense that that's happening.
It is happening right now.
So what's crazy about this is that there are a lot of Republican PCs who are opposed to this because they're saying, oh, well, that's the state getting involved in local government. That shouldn't be the case.
Well, that happens all over.
But
that happens all the time.
But let's see, we have a Republican legislature. We will have a Republican governor after the next election. I'm confident.
You are confident.
We were not ever going to have a Republican mayor of Phoenix. We're not going to have a Republican mayor of Tucson.
No.
We're never going to have a Republican majority on the council. And so if you believe in limited government and individual property rights, then the state needs to be overriding these liberal cities.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
No, I don't disagree.
So that's
with
what
you.
this does.
Especially when you're talking about that level of property, 5 acres or more.
Well, and
I'm sure there's a lot of people, using Paradise Valley as an example, but a lot of people in like Arcadia who are frustrated with these monstrosities that have been built on, little 50,000 square foot land.
Well, I live in Arcadia Light, and the big thing is
two-story building.
Yeah. And to the point where we're thinking about it.
Yeah. To each his own.
But the point is there are people who have tracts of property that say, hey, I could put a couple smaller homes on this. There's a lot of demand.
Yeah, of course.
Developers could buy that and say, if it's 5 acres, we can put 10 houses on this easily.
Yeah.
Maybe 20. 5 acres is a quarter of an acre is bigger than most lots in Phoenix.
For sure. Yeah.
So you could put
5
lots of
acres
houses.
is
That's
quite a bit of property.
Big chunk of land. So because we literally do have a housing crunch here.
Yes.
And the inflation on housing has created a situation in which first-time home buying is basically out of reach for most people. Let me give you some stats. 15 years ago, the average age of the first-time home buyer. So 15 years ago was a little bit short. I bought my first house 20 years ago. Is that right? 25 years ago. Anyway, 15 years ago, the average age of average home buyer was 30.
Yeah.
The first time home buyer. Today, it's 38.
Yeah.
15 years ago, average income was 40,000. Today it's 53. So up, but not
significantly.
But check out.
Not enough to keep up with price inflation.
No, but check out a single-family home sales price. The average single-family home sales price in Arizona 15 years ago was $129,000.
Yeah.
So if you made 40,000, okay,
yeah,
you could
make it work.
That. If you make 53,000 today, do you think you can buy a home?
No,
because the average single-family house sales price in Arizona today is $470,000.
I was going to say 420, but yeah,
470. So from 129,000 to 470,000. At the same time, average income has gone up $13,000.
Yeah,
I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about.
And it used to be that Arizona was. I mean, people flocked here because affordable housing.
Affordable housing. Yeah. It's not affordable. If it's 470, if the average is 470,
that's not affordable. Huge crux of our economy for years, up until the implosion of 2008.
And cities are trying to lock people in and deny property rights to people who want to help try to alleviate this problem
and develop their properties.
Yeah. So if you care about this, then reach out to your legislator. Tell them to vote yes on SB 1229. And thank you, Senator Bolick.
Yeah,
for doing that.
That's great.
She's a smart person. I mean, she's one of those bright stars down there.
Yeah. And this is a great segue as well.
Okay. I'm happy to help you.
Into tariff-ageddon.
Yes.
There's a lot of conjecture out there in the body politic as to why Donald Trump is doing what he's doing, and to the vastness of what he's doing, and why he's trying to break the market.
Do you think he's trying to break the market?
I think he's trying to. Yeah, I think he's trying to break some China. I think he's trying to break international trade. I think he's trying to break the market a little bit. Market has been overvalued for some time, and trying to shuffle the deck, so to speak.
Okay.
And we'll see if he can be successful, because I don't think the market has quite gotten to the bottom. But everyone I've talked to who measures these things and looks at these things has been hoping for this for actually a couple months. They thought it would come in November after he was elected, but now it's coming now, and it allows a lot of people to shuffle the decks, and it should be interesting to see how it all pans out.
So there have been a lot of different. So I think I sent to you an article by Rod Martin.
I don't know if I've seen it.
I emailed.
I know there's an article everyone's talking about today from Victor Davis Hanson.
Yeah,
who makes an argument that for Trump, not so much for what's happening in the market, but the market is the market, and the fundamentals are the fundamentals. And I had that discussion with somebody the other day. The fundamentals of American business are still very, very strong. Employment's still strong. Everything's very, very strong. How this plays out internationally for Donald Trump is the mindset of saying we've had of respect. And I think that's what Dr. Hanson's getting at, is that we've had an open border for how long? 30 years. People flooding in this country. Now it's being reported widely that we have over 1 million people on the voter rolls that shouldn't be on the voter rolls. We have over 1 million illegals on Medicaid and Social Security. You've got Social Security cards. So that was just reported this week. That all needs to stop, because that's taken away from America, American citizens. That's part of what Trump is doing on the border. What he's doing internationally is saying we can't sustain a $36 trillion debt and a $1.7 trillion trade deficit with countries who don't like us and don't want to buy our products.
Right.
And so how do we break that? Well, we're going to break the whole thing first. And I'm not defending that approach. I think a more measured approach with different countries makes a lot more sense than breaking all the China at once. But that's what he's done.
Well, but there's different people have viewpoints of like what's the game,
what's the game?
The messaging from the White House, from the administration, has been a little bit mixed because
it's been horrendous.
You have some saying, oh, well, this is a negotiating tactic, we're going to get to zero tariffs on partners, and this is temporary. The other side saying these tariffs are going to raise us a bunch of money. And so it's
going
like,
to replace
the
income tax or whatever.
So if you're negotiating to zero, that's not going to raise a bunch of money. If you're raising a bunch of money, you're not negotiating to zero. So which is it? And I don't know that. I'm not even certain that Trump knows what it is, because I think he is basically saying, I have been talking about tariffs since the 1980s, and he has. Yes. He had an open letter in the New York Times in 1987 where he talked about tariffs and the need for us to raise them on particularly Japan at the time.
Yeah.
Because of how much money we were spending on defense for Japan. And
I don't think that's necessarily a bad argument.
No, I
mean, certainly in 1980, it might have been looked at like, well, I mean, we weren't that far away from World War II, but now we're 80 years.
Well, and I think that as I look at it, we have given countries a pass on having high tariffs on our stuff going to their countries and no tariffs on their stuff coming to our country,
or minimal tariffs, 2%, 3%.
In part as an attempt to freeze out the Soviet Union during the Cold War.
Sure.
Cold War ended in 1989. The wall came down. Reagan won. So the tariff situation probably should have changed at that point. But we let that continue.
Well, the whole military calculus should have changed at that time. I mean, at least maybe not at that moment because you didn't know what was going to happen. But now, why do we still have how many bases in Germany?
50. Well, I don't know. I mean, we have Germany, but we've got 56 bases in other countries.
But just in Europe, let's just take Europe, because I think so much of this is actually being targeted at Europe. We're spending all this money propping up European society.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason why European society has great health care and lovely roads but can't build a car to save their life in France or Great Britain is because of America. We have bases all over the UK. We have bases all over Germany. We have several bases in France. We have several bases in Spain. Yeah. We have I shattered my wrist in Italy. La Spezia, huge training base for the Navy. Didn't know that.
And aren't you glad it was there?
I was glad it was there if I needed it, but I didn't know that until I was there.
Right.
And they're like, "Oh, are you military?" And I'm like, "What?" Like, "Oh, with the military base." I go, "What military base?" The one that's just down the road. So that in and of itself had a place, and I get that. But that time has changed.
Yeah.
And when Europeans balk about, spending more money on defense, and then you can't buy an F-150. It's a broken record. Couldn't buy an F-150, or you still can't buy an F-150, the number one car in America, in Germany, unless you go through an importer.
Right.
That's outrageous, and I think that's what Trump is trying to bring to the forefront. That it's access. It has everything to do with money, but it has so much to do with access.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it is funny.
I can't argue with him when he brings that stuff up.
Right.
Like, okay, I don't know. I don't agree with the approach of what he's doing right now. I just want to make that clear. I don't like tariffs overall. I think they're taxes. But he must see something where he needs to break the order to rebuild it in some way.
Yeah. So the discussion of tariffs and the impact it has on what's going on in the United States has hit close to home.
Mm.
And when I say close to home, I mean 3 doors down from my home.
Okay.
So the New York Times did a piece, How Trump's Tariffs and Immigration Policies Could Raise Home Building Costs. They did a story on this.
Okay.
The the house that they highlight is a house that's being built 3 doors down from my house on my street.
One of those 2-story homes?
Yeah. Well, actually, this one's not 2-story, but they're using
one of those rants.
It is a tear down, and they're using the vast majority of the lot for the house. It's going to be a very small yard. But it highlights Nathan Anderson, who's the builder, and he goes through and says that because of the immigration issue, the house is going to be significantly more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
If these things happen, he projects that the concrete foundation is going to be 25% more in labor cost, and framing is going to be 25% more in labor cost. And then
so
material.
Was he using illegals? Because he can't do that in the state of Arizona. There's already a state law called E-Verify that says you can't do that. That would be
listen to this.
Crime.
This is literally in the New York Times. Nearly half the roofers in the U.S. are not citizens, and so they talk about how roofing is going to be 20% more expensive. The labor of roofing and drywall and flooring and painting.
This is sort of racist in many ways. I hate this argument of the left that you're going to pay more for stuff because we import slave labor to keep your stuff cheap.
I mean, it was basically so
okay.
So and then at the end,
that's essentially what they say when
ultimately,
they say
this house is gonna be for sale for $2.6 million, which is insane because that is like so much more.
But somebody from California will pay it.
And the cost to him,
because they don't have big yards in California anyway, so
right,
I don't care.
To buy the old house and lot, and then build a new house on it, cost him $1.6 million. So he has $1 million profit. But he says he's going to need to raise the price of the house if these tariffs and immigration issues actually go through. And I'm like, so you have to protect your $1 million in profit because you have illegal immigrant labor rather than pay an extra 20% to Americans to do this
and maybe
job.
Make $500,000 on the house.
Or 750 or 800,000.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it is astounding to me that he was willing to be in the New York Times saying, yeah, basically, I pay my illegal immigrants less than what I would pay
when I would pay just
the citizen.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And I breaking the law.
Yeah.
I mean, the one way that I've always advocated to fix illegal immigration nationwide, it's an easy national fix. Pass E-Verify. Pass E-Verify.
Well, don't we have E-Verify here?
We do. We're one of the first states to pass it. And then that's why
so
many and actually we enforce it as well. And
apparently not on my street.
Not when it comes to that type of construction, obviously.
I guess
but Arizona for many years, because of E-Verify, has been more of a pass-through state because there's certain jobs you just can't get.
Right. So it does frustrate. I mean, I get that we want to have we were just talking about affordable housing, and this is going to make housing slightly more expensive. But if tariffs and the crackdown on illegal immigration leads to a little bit higher prices because we're using American labor, I mean, I think that's what Trump is going for. Whether you like it or agree with it or not, that's what he's going for. But we need to get rid of the regulations.
Yes.
That make things more expensive so that we don't have to cut corners by paying less money to illegal immigrants to do some of this construction.
Yeah, how many hoops does that developer have to go through?
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine.
Just to pour the foundation.
Yeah, I'm sure it was
in any given community.
I'm sure it was
crazy.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is about as much as he was paying. Let's just use
California as an example. None of those homes, we've talked about this before, on PCH are going to get rebuilt.
No.
by the vast majority of people who own them, because their entire wealth was in that house.
Yeah.
And there's no way that the regulatory body called the Coastal Commission is going to allow it. The only people who will be building there are multi-millionaires, billionaires who can buy it all up, redevelop it, pay all the fees, and build whatever they want.
Yep.
But also the Coastal Commission will look at it as an opportunity to clear out all that land. And make it all,
Well, it will
beachy.
be interesting to go through the Pacific
and
Palisades.
we'll pay
in
for
10 or
that too.
15 years.
We'll pay for that here.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to pay for, if you're getting ready for your insurance renewals right now, which a lot of people are, you're going to see it.
Yeah, there'll be.
You're going to see it. Everyone's going to pay for it.
For sure.
Because they got to get the money somewhere.
So going back to the overall tariff thing, some people,
everyone's trying to figure out what was he doing.
Well, the MAGA core people are saying, "Oh, this is 4D chess. We're going to get to the resolution of this is going to be amazing." They don't really know what it is.
No.
You and I have talked about it, and I think Stephen Moore is where we are, which is if we're going to have these tariffs, we got to have tax relief immediately.
Yes, absolutely. Like tomorrow.
Yeah,
what are you guys doing?
And if we're going to keep these tariffs in place, then let's head towards no income tax. That needs to be that. I've become more and more bullish on that. Needs to be a national goal, is to get rid of the income tax. If we
I just
at
don't
a minimum
see...
we flatten it. If we can't, and if we but ideally get rid of it and go to a sales tax.
Yeah, I don't see that as the end goal. I think it's to get 0 for 0. I think that's where they're moving towards.
You think it's to get
just
completely open up trade?
Yeah, I just think it's a 0 for 0 game, because you can't. So if the European Union says, "Okay, we're going to go 0 for 0 and open it up, and we're not going to play games with your wine and cheese versus our wine and cheese. This is the way it's going to be." Then that's going to freak out European markets, because they've played protectionism for years on so many products.
Well, and it's
where American products are just as good, if not better.
Well, it will crush the economies of other countries, because we are the biggest consumer in the world.
Yeah.
So if there are tariffs on stuff coming in, that's going to hurt those markets.
Of course.
Significantly.
If you put a 20% tariff on every BMW, Mercedes, name the European car that so many people here drive.
Well, I mean, you want to talk about...
There's a lot of people who are not going to care, but their sales will plummet.
The tariff coming off of Japan and Korea.
Of course.
I mean, there are so many Japanese and Korean cars.
Oh, of course.
Kia is, I mean, there's more Kias on the road than I see Kias everywhere.
And you can't buy an American car in those countries. Can't buy them. That's the issue. It's access.
Yeah.
It's access to markets, fair access to markets. I mean, and tariffs are a tool to try to open that up.
Now,
whether that happens or not, we'll see. But
yeah, and I think
it has to happen.
I think I speculated in the previous episode that maybe one of the things that will happen is the markets go way down. The Fed realizes, oh, we can now cut the rates. Interest rates are down, and then we can refinance the debt, which would save us hundreds of billions of dollars.
There's a lot of
Trump actually talked about that.
Yeah, there's been a lot written about that. Part of the breaking of the China is to create a situation where interest rates can get lower.
Yeah,
debt can be refinanced, and we have a big debt bomb happening this year.
Yeah. Well, and keep in mind, this is something now I know that
huge payments.
Our listeners and viewers are probably in the market.
Yeah,
I
would say most of them are.
The majority of our listeners and viewers are in the market in some way, whether it's they have their own accounts or their 401k is in the market, whatever their retirement, that kind of thing, IRA. The fascinating thing and this was Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, 88% of the market is owned by 10% of America.
Yeah.
12% of the remaining 12% of the market is owned by 40% of America. So there are 50% of Americans that don't have that they're just debt. They just have debt.
Yeah.
And
they have mortgage debt, credit card debt.
What his point is that we've got to get them relief, because mortgage debt, credit card debt, automobile loan debt, those are the highest levels ever. And they're starting to be late. We're seeing, I've seen a couple reports about late payments are going up in all three sectors.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Well, and there's a lot of corporate debt out there too.
Yeah, that's true.
That is coming due, and that's a big concern right now with the tariffs.
Yeah. So,
because the banks are now calling in, are now making margin calls on a lot of different corporate debt.
So my position on this at this point is, let's take a breath, because this is going to maybe sound crass. If you're in the market, yes, you're going to take a hit. But guess what? You're going to buy the dip, and you're going to make it all back. But there's half of America who is not affected in that regard.
That was the other point that Victor Davis Hanson was making. He's like, so many of these people who are in the market, they're freaking out because their 10 to 20% returns might not be there this year.
Right.
It might be more like a 5 to 7%, which is normal, or 8%, which is normal, versus 10, 20, 30%, which has been the case over the last 10 years.
Which has been insane.
It's just been crazy. Yeah. So that's why everyone's freaking out. Has nothing to do with fundamental economics. Has everything to do with the way the market is structured.
Basically, great.
And also the way the market has been structured over the last 2 decades has been the Fed has been buying up stocks.
Yeah.
And it's through quantitative easing. And that gravy train is over.
Yeah. Well, it does. It does, I have to really, as a Reagan baby and a free market guy, I've always been anti-tariff. I still
I'm with you.
Feel that way, but I understand that there's probably things that I haven't thought about, the inequity of the tariff positions vis-a-vis the other countries and how much they're taking advantage of the United States. And I think stuff we do need some course correction.
I think you can talk about that when it comes to developed Western countries. I think when you're talking about Vietnam, it's where the GDP per capita is like $750 or $7,000.
Yeah. I mean, Malaysia.
Everyone's like, oh yeah, Vietnam. Like, they have no money.
There's no money.
We have a trade deficit with them because they have no money.
Yeah.
I think when you're talking about the European Union, Canada, even Mexico, to that extent, the Western powers, there needs to be some reciprocation.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to tax our trucks and cars at 10%, guess what? You're not going to get a pass anymore for your BMWs and your Mercedes.
Right.
So that's kind of the starting point in many ways. And when we were fine racking up trillions of dollars of debt to be the loaner to the world, that was great. But that gravy train is over.
Yeah.
We have got to freeze spending, shut down the border, and these other countries have got to restructure their economies to start standing on their own.
Right.
They have stood on the shoulders of America for 80 years.
Yeah.
In the post-World War II
Since
era.
the end of World War II.
They have stood on the shoulders of America. God bless us. God bless our country. God bless those countries. Guess what? The world's changed.
Yeah.
They have to stand on their own. That's also what's happening in the markets. They have to stand on their own.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we will see how this shakes out. And I guess my whole point is I'm willing to take a breath and see how it shakes out. I'm not going to have a freak out. I'm not
I
going to
think
say
if the
that
goal
this
is 0 to 0, I think that's
well,
great.
if it's 0 to 0, that warms my free market heart.
Yeah, that'd be
right?
great.
And especially if it's actually 0 to 0, because
if you go to 0 and we stay at 10, that's not going to work.
Well, but we won't.
No.
I don't think because it won't work. But I don't think he would do that. I mean,
That's
he
what
can
Peter
take the
Navarro
win.
wants to do.
Yeah. Well,
I think Besant is actually Besant. We're going to get this wrong. He seems to be the most reasonable of everyone who's out there speaking.
Yeah. Well, and you've got Musk talking about where we are.
Well, Musk gets it too.
He gets it. He's a free market guy. He understands. So
yeah, because his major business gets products from everywhere.
Yeah.
That's the other realization that needs to happen in some ways. That's why I hope 0 to 0 is the goal. It's because the global economy exists as it exists because we've allowed it to happen over the last 30, 40 years with the trade policies that we have enacted. And that gives companies the leeway of buying different parts and products and inputs from different countries at lower prices, lower costs. That just doesn't change on a dime. Repatriation of American factories and jobs,
that takes time.
It's going to take decades.
Yeah, it's going to take time for sure.
But if the goal is 0 to 0, it can happen quicker than normal.
Yeah.
But it's very complicated, and I think there are great points on both sides of this issue.
Yeah, just know that you're going to lose if you're in the market. You're going to lose a little bit of money. You can buy a little bit more on the bottom and make it back
the people I've been talking to, and I see people at the kids' school who are in this, and wealth managers, whatever. They've been waiting for a big correction for a while, 12 to 15%, and they didn't know it would happen like this, but they're actually happy that it's there because it was due.
Yeah,
we need some pricing correction in the market.
Yeah.
It was way overvalued. That's why
it averages. We average a course correction every couple of years. Right?
Yeah, that's why Buffett was holding on all that cash. Why is he holding on the cash? Well, because
he knows this thing is cyclical. Yeah,
yeah. Just watch what Buffett does.
Yeah, exactly. Smart guy.
Yeah.
All right.
And the beauty of compounded interest.
That's right.
Still there. Still
exists. Time is
so everyone who's panicking, let them panic.
Yeah. Just take the time.
Keep
well, if you are panicked, then something has gone wrong because you're over leveraged. For example, if you are reliant upon your 401k,
and to be sure, we do not give investment advice.
Yeah,
here
for
at Life Your Dark Money.
For retirement,
please consult your investment professional for doing anything with your stocks and bonds.
We will not be held liable. But if you
just
are
a little disclaimer,
if you're at the age of retirement or within a couple of years and all of your money's in the market, then shame on you. That's not good planning. Yeah, you should be in bonds or
it's an age.
This is
right.
If you're like us in your 50s, we still got plenty of time to make some money out of the market.
Yeah,
and we take the risk, whatever it is.
Yeah, But the imbalances in global trade, they do exist, and and it just seems like there's the agricultural secretary said yesterday there's 70 countries that are burning up the phones.
That's good. That's great. If they're on the phone saying let's make a deal, let's make the deal.
Let's make a deal.
Let's make the deal.
I'm going to break all the China all at once, and I'm going to sew it all up within a month so I can focus on taxes.
Yeah. Let's make a deal. All right, folks. Until next time.
God bless.
Thanks
for listening.
Take care.